Hello!
Can you see us, hear us? Are we there?
I think they can. There's a delay.
Okay. Welcome. We are late to our own math marathon. We were very busy doing lots of math problems, so please forgive us. Welcome. I'm Elise Bonarelli. This is our first ever math marathon. We invented this, and here we are. So the idea is that we are spending 13.1 hours solving as many math problems as we can here at VectorSpace, and we is actually a whole group of folks from all over the community. So, in our time here at VectorSpace, we work with so many talented and interesting people with so many different backgrounds, and so we wanted to bring them together to do this challenge. Adam, do you want to tell us about the idea?
Sure. So there's several reasons for this idea. For one thing is to highlight the importance of math and the value of math, that all these people in Lynchburg are using math in their jobs all the time. And I think that's important because a lot of times, I know when I was a kid, the most common question is, am I ever going to use this? What is this for? Do I really need to know this? And the answer is usually yes. And so I want people in Lynchburg to see that people here really do use math. They solve challenging math questions. And I want to highlight those people, those companies they represent, the work they do. And I kind of want to highlight part of the fun of it too, and the accomplishment. We made it this marathon style event, obviously after a race where someone does something that's quite an accomplishment, and it's something that's worthy of pride, and it's worthy of being commended. And I think this is sort of the same thing for these people to come together. So we're talking about engineers, scientists, professors at local universities, school teachers, hobbyists. There's a variety of people here, and most of them are very good at math. But I will tell you, we're having a hard time with some of these problems. They get very difficult. So it's not as if that it's easy for us or something like that. This is still quite an accomplishment.
So let's talk about these problems. So one of our children does think that we're running today.
Yes.
And that a math marathon is a race. So it's not that. It is solving as many math problems, but where did these problems come from? We did not curate these problems. Happily, there is a collection of problems already out there. And so will you talk about a little
Sure.
bit? It's called Project Euler.
Yeah, so this is projecteuler.net. And this is a website with a whole collection of problems that are mostly number theory. And this is something that, in your K through 12, you probably don't talk a whole lot about number theory. Typically, when you think of math, what you're thinking of is arithmetic, usually, or algebra, geometry. A lot of these problems are number theory, so it's like properties of numbers, like working with prime numbers, or taking certain numbers and looking at patterns in those numbers. For example, one of the problems we were working on earlier was finding specific palindrome numbers, meaning if you split the number down the middle and looked at it in a mirror, does it look the same on the left and right side? Is it mirrored? And there's all kinds of just fascinating patterns in the series of integers, and all kinds of problems to be solved in that world. So those are a lot of the types of problems that are on Project Euler, and we are mostly starting. They get progressively harder. So problem 1 is relatively easy. You can solve it by hand, I think, but after about problem 5, you'll reach a point where you can't really solve it by hand. You need a computer to do it, and they get progressively harder and harder.
So that's sort of one of the things about this particular set of problems is it's not just math, it's math and programming.
Yes, that's right. And so in our collecting of participants in solving these problems, it's hard to find people with both talents. And so we have, I would say, we have people who are more skewed towards the math side of things and people more skewed towards computer science, and we're pairing them up and kind of working in pairs and tackling problems that way.
So far, it's been we're 6 hours in,
Yes.
6 o'clock. So we're 6 hours in, and we've solved, I think, 21, 22 problems. And so the problems that have been solved are numbers 1 through 3, 5, 11 through 16, several of the 20s, a couple of the 30s, fewer in the 40s, number 60, and then I think you specifically have been working on number 70 for quite a while now.
Number 70 is really hard. All right. I think it's harder than 71 for sure. It's probably harder than 80. I don't know. But if anyone out there can help me with problem 70, you just send me a little message, any hints, anything you got, I'd appreciate
Put it in the chat. Answer to number 70, please. But do we collectively as a team, is there a specific strategy to approaching these numbers? I guess before we talk about which problems we've solved, we should also say that the structure of this is that we had our participants sign up in 4-hour blocks.
Yes.
So thankfully, some of them have stayed more than 4 hours because they're heroes, and are still working diligently. But we have new folks coming in so that most folks don't have to be here for the whole 13.1 hours. So we had a strong group right at noon and I think by 4 hours in, we had solved 20 problems. In the last 2 hours, we've only solved 2.
It's getting harder. Yeah. So I don't know. There's not a ton of strategy with each pairing of teams. We're starting them on easier problems and then trying to get them to progressively work up to more difficult problems. So that's mostly what we're doing.
So there's still some hope with problems 6 through 10 and
yes, there's some easy
17
ones
through 22
when it gets late. So we're doing this until 1 a.m. tomorrow. So once it gets late and my brain stops working and others start getting worn out, I think
that's what I got all the coffee for.
We'll jump back. The coffee is helping for sure, but there's a limit. So we'll jump back to those easier ones and start cleaning up.
Awesome. So in addition to the work that's being done here, we really wanted this to be sort of a math outreach event. And so we also put together some curriculum that you can do at home, that teachers can use in the classroom, parents can use with their kids. Kids can hop on and find themselves. And we did a couple different exercises for a couple different age brackets. So I think one thing that was tricky about this is putting together curriculum that uses number theory, because it's different than the math that most students are going to be familiar with and seeing in their classrooms. And we also, we wanted them to be real world problems and age appropriate. So do you want to talk about how we came up with those? And I guess let's talk about what the curriculum is too. So for K through 2, we have one problem.
Yeah, so for that one, it's really like an introduction to prime and composite numbers. So what do those terms mean? And working through the numbers from 1 to 20, which numbers are prime and which are composite. And I think maybe that sounds advanced for a kindergartner, but I think it's reasonable. I think if you give the exercise a try, I think they'll understand it pretty well.
We designed it so that you could take a group of students in a classroom, or even just a group of objects. You could take 20 pencils and put them in groups and then see how many groups you could break them into to really describe how to find a prime number. So
right.
It's pretty manageable.
Yeah.
For the 3rd through 5th graders, we did a Zoom webinar this afternoon, which if you missed that, will be available on our YouTube after today. And that was a fun cryptography problem.
Yeah, so that's a problem where the students create their own cryptography key, and then they use that to encrypt a message. So basically they're writing secret messages to one another. That's a little more formalized. So they make this key and they use it to encipher just a normal message that they would have, and then what that creates is something that looks like gibberish. I mean, it's something that you wouldn't just be able to read without the key, and then they can pass that note to their friends, and the friend can decipher the message if they have the key. So it kind of walks them through that whole process. And actually on the back side, that one's 2 pages. On the back side, there's even a little maker activity with that one to make a Caesar cipher by cutting out these two discs and pinning them together. Something fun and a little extra for them to do.
And for the middle school set, this one might be my favorite. It is not exactly, but sort of an example of mining Bitcoin, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. So I thought this would be interesting to people. Everyone's interested in Bitcoin, it seems like. So we came up with a not everyone.
Jay's not interested.
We came up with an exercise that I think does a reasonable job of being similar to the process of mining Bitcoin. To actually do it with a paper and pencil would take a very long time, so we simplified the process. But hopefully it gives you an idea of what an algorithm looks like that it's easy to solve in one direction, but extremely difficult to solve in the other direction. And that's really the key to why Bitcoin mining works. And hopefully that exercise helps explain all that.
And then for the high schoolers, we have the transportation issue.
Yes. So for high schoolers,
very real world.
we have a bus routing problem. It seemed topical and it seemed appropriate. So this is a very famous problem, typically called the traveling salesman problem, and there's lots of variations of it, but it's the same thing with routing a bus from a depot to picking up kids. You've got all these stations, you've got a certain number of buses. In this example, we use just one bus to keep it kind of simple. And the question is, what's the shortest path for that bus to take between all these bus stops? There's a lot of possible answers. So you could randomly choose a path and hope for the best. But to find the optimal solution, there is no known algorithm to do it efficiently. And all we have are rules of thumb, heuristics, like different tricks we use to try to come up with good results. And some heuristics work well on some problems, and sometimes they work very poorly. And that whole exercise is kind of an exploration of that idea of math problems that aren't really solved yet and don't have a straight solution like a simple algebra problem.
Awesome. So you can find all of that curriculum at vector-space.org. Still saying vector-space.org/math. Sorry guys, I forgot our website. Too many numbers. You can also just go to our website and click on the blog on the homepage, and it'll take you to the math page. So again, on that math page on our website, there is a curriculum. There's the Zoom webinar. There's also a link where you can donate. You can make a pledge per problem. So I mentioned that we've solved 20 problems so far. I think you had a hopeful goal of close to 50, right? So we are about halfway. So we could get close to that. But if you want to, give $1 per problem, it'll keep them motivated, especially as we get into the later hours. But we have another group of mathematicians and programmers coming in shortly. So
yeah, so we'd certainly appreciate the encouragement. And if this is the sort of thing you want to see happening in Lynchburg, then please support it.
Awesome. All right, so we are going to cut to a video of one of our student projects. One of the reasons we wanted to do this math event here for the community is that math happens all the time, every day, in so many different ways here at Vector Space. And our student projects are projects that we do with teens during school, after school, summer programs, and all of them involve a lot of math, applied math. So we're going to show the video from our combat robot project, and then we'll be back with an interview with the Cocos.
This was an 8-week project for 10 high school students to build their own combat robots. And we started from drawings, and from drawings we went into cardboard mock-ups of the design that the students wanted. And then from the cardboard mock-ups, we worked our way into aluminum and steel. This required a lot of skill sets that most high schoolers don't have or ever get in high school, and most people don't get in a lifetime. They learned how to solder. There was quite a bit of soldering in this project. Learning about basic electronic components. How does a motor work? What is it about sending electricity through these copper wires that makes something spin? How can that be? And how do we send radio signals from one thing to another wirelessly? And they got to put their work to the test too. So they got to see what aspects of what they built worked well and which ones didn't, and whose robot had the best weapon or whose had the best armor. And you don't often get a chance to do that, to really put your work to the test and see where things went right and went wrong and how they would do things differently. And yeah, I'm sure it's something they'll look back on throughout their lives as an example of something that they were proud of. That one time I built a robot, I could do this.
All right. Welcome back. We are here with Jessica and Mike Coco, who are both math people and also math teachers. So guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves to our viewers.
I'm Jessica Coco. I work at Central Virginia Community College, CVCC, and I am a math faculty there.
Hi, I'm Mike Coco. I teach at University of Lynchburg.
Awesome. Great. Both math teachers and married to math, married to each other. Okay, so tell me how this mathathon has been so far. What was your, what did you think when we reached out and said that this was happening and we needed you to be a part of it? And what do you think now that you're here?
I honestly wondered if I was the right mathematician. It's like, and it sounded really exciting. I was not sure if I would last 24 hours, but 13.1 seems manageable. Yeah.
Yeah, I was worried about being the wrong kind of mathematician too. It's not exactly my field, but I have a little bit of background in some different areas and a little bit of background in coding, so I think that helped. But it's been a lot of fun just exploring different problems.
Cool.
Yeah, it has been fun.
That is feedback that we got from lots of folks that we reached out to, was like, is this for me? I'm not a programmer, or I can program, but I'm, not a strong math person. And I think one of the reasons that we got that feedback and that resistance from people, even if they were qualified, they maybe felt like they weren't, because this doesn't happen, right? Like, we don't have math events and we don't do math outreach in this way. So I think it's really normal for folks to be like, is that for me? I've never done that before, right?
Yeah.
But I think that, one of the reasons you've never done that before is because this kind of thing doesn't happen very often. So I appreciate you guys believing in us and believing that you are the right mathematicians. Tell me some about the problems that you've worked on so far today, and any wins, tough spots. How's that going?
Oh yeah, everything just went blank on my end. We just finished a problem about really cool weird fractions that they have the same numbers and they reduce down to it's not how you reduce a fraction, but it works out, and there's only 4 cases in like 1 through 100.
Oh, wow.
And we had to find them. And so me and my programmer, because I'm the math heavy person with a little bit of programmer.
We did not pair them together. So
Yeah.
Jess
we
is with
do
That
Jesse.
would not go well.
We have team Jess and Jesse, and
Yeah.
then Mike is working with Adam.
But Jesse's been amazing. And we figured out the 4. I actually Googled it by accident and found the answer, but we kept going to use the programming. That was my bad. Jesse did not do that. I did not mean to do it. I was just trying to look for I was trying to create an algorithm. I'm trying to, it's kind of like creating the proof, like a case from using inductive reasoning case by case to see like a broader general. And that's basically number theory, because it sequences a lot. And I really do love number theory. But I was just trying to add to my vocabulary and my knowledge and stumbled across the answers. But Jesse put his magic into the magic programming tool and the code. I told him at one point, I felt like I was watching, because programming in itself is its own language, and any kind of foreign film has its own language. So at times I was felt like I was eating snacks and watching a foreign film that was very interesting.
You're like, I know those numbers, but I've never seen them used that way.
Yeah, it was fun. So what did you guys do?
We worked on several pretty interesting problems that I noticed were like tangentially related to things I've seen before, so I could recognize part of it, and maybe that, you know, gave us a clue about how we might approach it. But it was great to work with Adam because I could just give suggestions about the structure of the code or things that we needed to solve.
Yeah.
And he was able to, you know, formalize it. So I didn't, you know, need all the details of the code. I could, you know, talk in pseudocode and we could piece it together. So it was there were some really challenging problems, and the one we're working on now has been super challenging.
It's like the program is half the brain, like, but they also input with math too, because, you know, they're also strong. It's really cool.
That's such a good, like, real world practice too, right? Because we all go to work and have to work with people in different fields, and, you know, the engineers have to work with the folks on the floor, and I think that's a good practice.
Yeah. The
And
collaboration.
yeah, exactly. Working with different people with different strengths. So when you guys teach math, do you have anything, I guess, what drew you to math as a career? What's interesting about it in your day-to-day life? What keeps you guys excited about math? Anything specific?
Well, I would say that most people are attracted to math, if they're attracted to math, because there's like one right answer and you know you can find it. And that gets you pretty far. But after a while, you realize sometimes there's not one right answer, and sometimes there's no answer and you don't know if you can find it. And then there's that exploration that can really, you know, keep you going, and it fuels the process. And it's like there's that discovery part of it that is better than, you know, just getting the right answer sometimes.
That's
Yeah.
cool. I've heard you talk, especially with this problem number 70 that you guys have been working on, about taking different approaches too, right? Like, there's not just the more complex your math gets, there's more than one path to that answer too, which is interesting.
Just like the bus problem.
That's right.
I'd have to say the challenge is a big piece, and the fact that it really makes you sit and think and see connections. Makes you very critical thinker and literate in a lot of things, if you really study the math. I must say that you touch base on, like, teaching, favorite teaching moments. For me, it's really seeing students open up and take risk in math and have the light bulb moments, or even be very frustrated to where they, like, you're like, and they come back, but they always come back. And the one that really hits me is just recently happened. I was teaching ellipsis in the classroom, and we were going over all the vocabulary, and I thought I was going to have to, like, really hit it home, so I was over explaining everything for too long. And eventually the students were like, one of the students was like, "Mrs. Coco, can we just try this problem, this example?" And
good.
they
So
tried
they're
it and they
excited.
got it right.
Yeah.
And then those who were like, "Oh, I don't know how to do it," the student got up and was like, he's like, "Do you mind if I teach it?" I was like, "Okay." I was like, I must over explain this. But they taught it just, like, better than I would. But I love that, because I love when students actually take control of their learning and they just use their critical thinking. And math is is very creative to me. You find math in nature, art. It's not like math is separate from, it's not just sciences, it's everywhere. All the subject areas are connected, and that's why it's really important to really understand the math world, because it's a part of the physical world
Yeah.
in every
that's-
aspect.
Definitely. We see that
So-
at Vector Space. Math is everywhere. I liked what you said about the challenge of math, too. I think that a lot of times, especially with youth and with students, they think math is hard, and they think that that's a bad thing. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, right? It's good to do hard things. And just because something is hard doesn't mean you can't do it, right? So, I mean, the curriculum that we put together, the problems that you're working on today, like, they're all hard. And sometimes it's frustrating, but that makes, the reward greater.
Yeah.
And it's good to stretch and learn. Awesome. All right, so before we move along, we are going to do the drawing for the Givens gift card. So we did a little social media promo. We wanted teachers to be engaged with this project and to share the curriculum with their students. And so we had, I think, about 50 teachers entered to win a gift card to Givens Books. And so I'm going to let these teachers do the honors of drawing the winner.
Are we drawing 10?
Just one.
Just one.
One winner. I don't have 10 $50
I tried,
gift cards.
guys.
Jessica.
I tried.
Thank you. Thank you for trying. Okay.
Which do you want me to
Draw
do?
one. Yep, it's all you.
Do it. Ooh, that's a good one.
I feel it. And the winner is Nikki White.
Nikki White, yay!
Was
Your
that enough
$50
fuss?
Givens gift card? Yes, great. So congratulations, Nikki. I know Nikki is a teacher at JF and well deserving of some Givens goodness. So thank you guys. Thank you for what you do in math and for teaching students and for being with us here today. We are going to have another interview in just a couple minutes, but first I'm going to show our fashion and tech project video. This project was really cool because it combined sewing and fashion with computer programming and electronics. So this is a photo and video slideshow of that project.
Broke up with me. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out what I did wrong. I'm so sorry. I'm usually the first one to admit I did wrong. Get over yourself. It's no big deal if I run a little faster than you on the playground. Get over yourself. What's your problem? What's your problem? Well, if you don't like girls that are stronger than you, and if you don't like girls that are faster than you, and if you don't like girls that are smarter than you, well, then you might not like me. You might not like me. 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 We had chemistry. You're the one that got away, and I'll never forget you. You were beautiful. You were perfect as you were, and I didn't want to fix you. Get over yourself. It's no big deal if I swim a little faster than you in the neighbor's pool. Get over yourself. What's your problem? What's your problem? Well, if you don't like girls that are stronger than you, and if you don't like girls that are faster than you, as you were, and I didn't want to fix you. Get over yourself, it's no big deal. If I swim a little faster than you in the neighbor's pool. Get over yourself, what's your problem? What's your problem? Well, if you don't like girls that are stronger than you, and if you don't like girls that are faster than you, and if you don't like girls that are smarter than you, well, then you might not like me, might not like me. And if you don't like girls tougher than you, and if you don't like girls more daring than you, and if you don't like girls braver than you, well, then you might not like me, might not like me. You might not like me. You might not like me, and that's fine. You might not like me. Well, if you don't like girls that are stronger than you, and if you don't like girls that are faster than you, and if you don't like girls that are smarter than you, well, then you might not like me, might not like me. Don't like girls, don't like girls, don't like girls, don't like girls.
All right, here we are back again. I hope you guys enjoyed that fashion and tech video. That project was a lot of fun, and our next guest is Jesse Hyatt, and Jesse actually worked with us a little bit on that project. What was your involvement?
I was involved in the early stages of getting the Gemma microcontrollers working to actually control the circuitry. So helping write the code that went into controlling the lights and any auditory stuff that was going on.
And what is a Gemma microcontroller? Can you define that for our...
Sure. Effectively, it's a very tiny wearable computer. It's something that's small enough to where you can easily sew it into fabric, and it's not going to get in the way, and it'll stand up to being worn.
Awesome. One of the really cool things about spaces where we don't work in silos is that things come together like that, right? So we've had fashion, we've had computers for a long time, but it is not until recently that we've put them together. So that we can design a tiny computer that you can put in your clothing and then can control your clothing is this sort of thing, the sort of innovation that happens when people work cross-discipline. And that's a lot of what we do here. I saw in the YouTube comments that Miss Profit at RS Payne mentioned that she had seen a couple former students in both of those student projects. And it's super fun to see kids go from, elementary school to working in our high school projects. We have kids that come from all over, from the city schools, from the counties, the private schools, homeschool kids, and they all come together and work as a team. And none of them have had experience in microcontrollers that you can put in your clothing before. So no matter where they're coming from and what their background is, they really get to learn these hands-on maker skills together. And it's a lot of fun. So Jesse, when you are not helping us teach fashion and electronics, what do you do?
So I'm an engineer at Framatome, and I work on the thermal mechanics team for fuels. So a lot of what I do there is in the automation space. So we talk to the nuclear physicists, they give us the codes for the analyses, and then we help to automate that into something that they don't have to do with pen and paper repeatedly.
Got it. That sounds involved and very specific. I know that our nuclear industries have a lot of very specific jobs, and you end up in this sort of niche where, you're working with these plants or with these fuels. Does what you do, like, how did you get there? How did you get to this very specific place? Did you just have an interest in computers or programming or math? What led you to this job?
Right. So one of the interesting things about going into computer science or the related computer fields is that pretty much no matter where you work, they have things for you to do. So you can replace nuclear analysis codes with any other programmatic things that you can do, or even if it's not with a like an engineering program or equations, if you just want to automate a workflow, right? So you use the same skills to generate those types of programs than you do for anything else. But for me personally, I was at school and there was an intern opportunity at Framatome, and they were looking for people that knew how to code. I was happy to fill that, and they offered me a job.
Awesome. How long have you been at Framatome?
5 years.
Okay, cool. So even though what you do sounds very niche, it's actually really applicable to lots of different fields, and computer programming is like, once you know that language or those languages, it sounds like it's really transferable to different fields and different interests even.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So what did you think when Adam strong-armed you into coming to participate in the Mathathon?
I really liked the idea. It's a way to show more people what we actually do. Because if you're in school, the team projects you work on a lot of times are not, at least from my experience, they weren't particularly real to life when it comes to a lot of things. Here you bring people together with different backgrounds. So a lot of the teams here were one person that was really good in math theory, one person that was programming. And not only do you get the experience that you do in the workplace of combining different people together to make something greater than one person can make, but you also get the practice translating. It was mentioned earlier that these things are different languages. If you take math theory, you have to translate that into something that a computer programmer can understand, because they don't know the math theory most of the time, and vice versa. So the algorithmic approach is kind of the middle ground. The math theory person puts that into some algorithm that is logical. A computer program can understand that, and we can work vice versa, back and forth. So that's a use, being able to translate to a different way of thinking. It's not just for the math marathon, that's pretty much everything in life.
Yeah, being able to work with different people in different fields. We talked about that a little bit earlier too. So one of the things that, even when we were putting together the curriculum that we shared with the K-12 students, one of the things that we found was that it's easier to find interesting real-world problems the more advanced you get, right? So do you think, has that been true with this, with the Project Euler problems? Are the later problems, they're harder, are they also more interesting? How was that experience been for you?
That's how I felt about it. A lot of the earlier problems, while they might be, generally a lot of people, you have to challenge them a little bit for them to be really invested in it. Right? If it's something that you know how to do easily without thinking about it, there's not really an investment there in time. So improving your skills slightly, or maybe not so slightly, in some of these problems, is always really gratifying to get these done.
Awesome. I think that is encouraging for our young students too, as they, like I said, it was harder to put together the curriculum for the kids without as much math experience. But the more you go, the deeper you go into any subject, the more gratifying, the more interesting you get to start solving problems that people don't know the answer to, right? And that is amazing. Like that's how we change the world. That's how we make progress. So we talk about math being challenging and whether that's a good thing or not. And I just think there's lots of reasons and support for trying things and sticking with things that are hard, especially if you are interested in them.
Right. And this has also been a good opportunity to see how different people approach the same problem in a different way. Because a lot of these issues, you can come up with a solution really easy, from my end programmatically, but it'll take 3 weeks to run. Whereas if you have someone that really understands how to write an efficient algorithm for it, it takes a couple seconds. And that's real world applicable, where you're dealing with billions upon billions of entries in a data set. And it matters how quickly you can run that.
Yeah, I think that surprises people. I think that people think like, oh, if you can write a program, then it'll just be done in a minute, right? Like computers, they're fast, but only if you're efficient at using them, right? So, awesome. Well, do you have anything else to add for us?
Not really. I appreciate you guys putting this on. This is a great idea, and I hope we do it again.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for being with us, Jesse.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I want to say a quick thank you to our food sponsors who, when we told the community that we were doing this event and when we started recruiting people, we said, okay, 13 hours is a long time. We should provide something for them. They're all here voluntarily. So Golf Park provided coffee for us today. Crisp provided salads for lunch. Water Dog provided dinner sandwiches, and then later we have Malin's Creamery and Mama Crockett's Donuts coming for our late night crew. So thank you to our community for supporting this and for helping feed and fuel our math brains. The last video we have for you before we wrap up is our go-kart video. So this is a project that we did most recently here at Vector Space. We had 2 teams of high schoolers who each built a go-kart. So this was a lot of welding, a lot of engine mechanics, and a lot of fun. So you'll see them go from pieces of metal to functional go-karts that they drive and then eventually crash a little bit. So enjoy the go-kart video, and then we'll be back to wrap up.
This is the go-kart project, where 8 high school students worked in teams to build and race 2 go-karts over the course of 12 weeks. In our last project video, I went deep into the details of maker education here at Vector Space. So this time, I'll cut right to the highlight reel that takes you all the way from idea to final product. Enjoy. Oh, yeah, there you go. Live axle install. One they recommend?
Yeah, this is the one they reckon. The price has been bumped up too.
Oh my god.
All right, that was our go-kart project. You saw them tow one of their carts out with a broken wheel, just a little bit of crash. But that was a great project and a great example of the kinds of things that we do here with kids. That one was much requested. So, we've been doing student projects for years, and we had kids request a go-kart project several times. And so finally they got what they wanted, and I think they enjoyed it. I want to thank you guys for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And I really want to thank our participants. So we have folks from several of our local schools and universities. We have participants from Sweetbriar College and University of Lynchburg, CVCC. We have teachers from Holy Cross and from Lynchburg City Schools. We had engineers and programmers from Framatome and BWXT and CloudFit. And, all of these people were here on their own time and volunteering to make math approachable and interesting and to share this experience with all of you. They didn't have to spend their Friday evening solving math problems. They do a lot of that at work. And so I really appreciate our participants that came to our unorthodox event, and I think they've had a good time. If you want to keep following along and see how they do and how they wrap up, you can find us on social media. Our Facebook page, VectorSpace. Our Instagram handle is VectorSpaceHQ, and we'll be posting in our stories some updates throughout the event, and then we'll do a blog wrap-up as well. Again, you can pledge to support our mathematicians as they continue on and as they try to solve more problems and more difficult problems. And I definitely want to say thanks to our videographer, Jay Profit with the University of Lynchburg, is here helping us with the live stream. And actually the Profits are like the other math couple, right? We had the Cocos, we've got the Profits. Tracy Profit Zoomed with us with her class this afternoon and is now going to come and be our late night crew and solve problems with us. So thank you to so many of the awesome math folks here in our community, and thanks for you guys. And stay tuned. VectorSpace does weird events that you haven't seen before and projects that your kids can't do elsewhere. And, there's a whole group of membership that you can access, and you can come and learn and do math and do lots of hands-on things with us. So thanks for tuning in, and have a great night.